Namaskar and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology, Debunking Mythology. I hope you're loving our sessions and with the kind of feedback that I get, it's thank you all. I can only say that for all the YouTube viewers as well as the live students. Sat means truth. I have to repeat it every time. Sat is truth in Sanskrit language. That's why it says Satyamev Jayate, that Satya only wins, truth only wins. And logos in Latin means a study or science. That's why you have biology, zoology, and all kinds of logies are there, right? So Sattology means science or study of truth. Opposite of that, the exact opposite of Sat is myth. It's again a Sanskrit word. So many of the words in English language are etymologically created using Sanskrit roots. Many words are there. Like Sharan became serendipity, and like that. Myth means a fake lie imagination in English. And myth is a Sanskrit word, it also means the same thing. Logos means a study or science, and therefore logy. So mythology becomes a study of fake lie imagination. The Western historians did not call their history as mythology, but they called everybody else's history as mythology. You know why? Because of colonial mindset. They wanted to spread their faith, their culture to the natives of other lands they colonized only for the purpose of using the resources for the land. And the best way to disconnect the natives from their own identity and history is to distort their own history. Right? You see how aborigines in Australia were completely decimated. Australia belongs to aborigines, not to the settlers from Britain or the prisoners who were sent there. And I'm not being trying to disrespectful. Many good Australian friends are there, but that is the history. The prisoners were sent by Britain to settle Australia. And you know what happened in Australia? Significant human rights abuses against aborigines till date, or just few years back, 20 years back or 10 years back. It was They were considered not even humans. They were considered as part of the vegetation, flora and fauna. That's what their condition was. And so when Australians talk about human rights, they have to first bring aborigines into power before they talk about human rights. Now, so just an example, South America, same thing happened. Completely in Brazil, if you go, there are no historical records of the native Brazilians. Everything was brushed aside as mythology. That was the same plan by the British colonial powers to put Hinduism in a museum by calling it a mythology. So when Indians call their history as mythology, it's like they're self-abusing themselves and also negating the entire history or the identity. The world knows it was the British who were civilized by the Indian culture, not the Indians. But they came to India as civilizing missions. Means that Indians are very backward, they have to be civilized. That's how they went to South America. They used the same mindset. French used the same mindset. Portuguese used the same mindset. So the entire Europe was competing amongst themselves to occupy as much land on behalf of their church. And I have no qualms in saying that and you can check it out on Wikipedia also. So it's a public information. Okay. But the Indian history information on Wikipedia is grossly incorrect. And therefore, I encourage all of you to write on sattology.org about the Indian temples, Indian history, and the Indian identity. With that, we get started on, again, we have one of my good friends now, and also a very good researcher. And he's also a doctor for the eye. So before we start off, we'll invite Dr. ML Raja and watch this presentation on the history of eras. Welcome, Dr. Raja.
Thank you. Namaskar and good morning to all. And good morning to the professors, eminent scholars, and budding scientists and students of various universities, and also the team of Sattology and other who are watching this session. A good morning to all of them. Shall I share now this slide?
Please go ahead. So before we start off, you share the slide and we'll keep talking and then you continue.
Okay.
Yeah.
This session about the eras, that is the epochs, the various dates, reference dates that were followed in India. There are more than 20 Indian eras are there, but the most important one only I am going to deal.
Before you start off, just one thing I want to ask you: are they accurately presented in the Indian textbooks?
Yes, definitely. I am going to deal about the literature evidence and also the inscriptional evidence for these epochs, Indian eras.
So, are the Indian students taught this data which you are presenting or no?
No, that is the sad part, because only in the archaeology department and history department they are somewhat detailing, but not all Indian eras. They will talk about Vikramas, Alivagana, that's all, about Gupta Empire, that's all, not about Kaliyuga and other things.
And do you
in
want
epigraphy course, in master in epigraphy, they will deal about all these Kaliyuga and Vikramas, Alivagana.
But would you, according to you, do you think that this information should be there in the Indian textbooks also?
Definitely, it should be. Every Indian should know their past, correct past, not what the Westerners taught. They should read all the Sanskrit textbooks and they should understand it and they should reproduce, and it should be in the curriculum of Indian education system. Then only we are justified in teaching them history. If we teach false history or wrong history, whether we are justified to do that, so that is not correct part. At least in the future, they should include all these things in the curriculum of Indian education system. That is my strong opinion.
Please continue.
Okay, shall I start?
Yes, continue. Yes.
Okay. In this session, I am going to deal about the Indian eras. That is various time reference years that were used by the ancestors of India to define their existence period time. That is the period of existence, the year at which they exist. It all mentioned in various references. So in that aspect, I am going to deal what are all the reference years they have followed. It is known as Indian eras or Bharatian eras. Eras means an epoch from which year it is calculated, the time is calculated. First one is the Yudhisthira era. From Mahabharata period only I am telling. Before that, there will be many eras, but I am starting the Indian eras from Mahabharata period. That is Yudhisthira Saka. That began with the victory of Yudhisthira in the Kurukshetra war. That is the Yudhisthira era. And the next one is Kaliyuga era. That is in which year the Kaliyuga began. So each era has a reference year, and that year some important historical event is happened. Then only it can become an era. So Kaliyuga, that is when the Sri Krishna left the world and the Kali Purusha entered the earth, that is Kaliyuga beginning. And it is also named as Jayabhyudaya Yudhisthira Saka, because on that year Yudhisthira gave the kingdom to his grandson Parikshit and went for Vanavasa. So it began in 3101 BCE. First, I will deal about what are all the eras. After that, I will explain each era. Then Saptarishi era or Laukika of the era. Laukika of the era, Laukika means it is concerned with the present, this world. So the worldly event, the material event. So Laukika came from Loka. Loka means world. Laukika Abda means year. So this Laukika of the year, it starts from 3076 before Common Era. That means at which year the Yudhishthira went to heaven. So that is an important historical event. So that is counted as Laukika Abdera. And the next one is Malawa Gana Saka. That is, Malawa is a small kingdom around Ujjain. Ujjain is the capital, and that area become independent from the Andhra Satavahana rule around 725 BCE. So those people, they started counting their days as Malava Ganasaka. And another one is Sakakala, that is Cyrus Era 550 BCE. In this year, the Cyrus II, the king of Parasika, he established the Parasika kingdom because after coming years, these Saka people ruled around Malwa and Gujarat area. That was followed in that area. And then come to Sri Harsha era. Sri Harsha era, it started from 457 BCE because he won over these Saka people and make Malwa as an independent country. Then come to the Gupta era. Gupta is an important kingdom. So we can say that is the golden period of India. So that Gupta era started in the year in which the Gupta kings started ruling the Magadha Empire. That is in a Gupta era. And coming to Vikrama Samvat, this is mostly followed in India in most of the almanacs. Vikramaditya is another king who ruled Ujjain in the Pramara dynasty, who also drove away all the Saka people, who came from foreign land to occupy, and he ruled whole India as a Chakravarti, the great king of India. He started his era in the 57 BCE, that is 3044 Kaliyuga. And Salivagana is his grandson, who became king after 135 years after this Vikrama Samvat, and he started his era. He also won over Saka people, the foreigners. And Ganga Samvat, that is era started by Eastern Ganga people. There are two Ganga. One is Western, that is around Mysore, and that is southern part of Karnataka. And Eastern Ganga is the Kalinga area, that is Odisha area. These Ganga people, they started their kingdom there. So the starting year of that Ganga dynasty became the Ganga Samvat. And Kollam era. Kollam is an important city in Kerala state. So that area became independent in the year 825 Common Era. So those Kerala people and also even southern part of Tamil Nadu, they are following this era, Kollam era. And another thing is Vikrama Salukya era. Vikrama Salukya, that is Vikramaditya VI of Salukya dynasty, Western Salukya dynasty, who ruled the Maharashtra and Karnataka with the capital at Kalyani. This Vikramaditya VI is a great king, and he started his era in the year 1077 Common Era. And Kochi date is 1341, in which year the Kochi became a harbor. Kochi is another Ernakulam in Kerala. So that became a harbor in the year 1341. And some people are following that Kochi date in Kerala. So these are all the important eras that were followed in various regions of India. So I am going to deal all these era individually with some details. This is coming to Yudhisthira Saka. I have told that Yudhisthira Saka began when Yudhisthira won the Kurukshetra war and became a universal monarch. That is, he ruled whole Bharat, not only Bharat. He was mentioned by the foreign authors like Abul Fasal Ibn Mubarak, who worked in Akbar's court as a universal monarch. So Yudhisthira. Yudhisthira is the Panchapandava, the first son of Kundi, who ruled after Kurukshetra the whole of India. So it started immediately after Mahabharata war. And Mahabharata war, I already written book based on the inscriptions and also astronomical evidence that it may be 3138 or a few years more than that. This is an important inscription. That is an inscriptional evidence for Yudhisthira Saka. That is, this inscription is a copper plate inscription. I thank ASI for using this photographs. That is, it is obtained from Batara. Batara is in Silgat district, a small village, present day Bangladesh. And the inscription is Sanskrit and Gaudiya. And it mentioned that the king Govinda Kesava Deva, who came in the Gaur dynasty, issued this inscription. The regnal period, ruling period of Govinda Kesava Deva is 990 to 1040 Common Era. This is obtained from other inscriptions and other evidence. This inscription mentioned that 4151 years from the era of the first king of Pandava dynasty. We know that the first king of Pandava is Yudhisthira. What it mentioned in Sanskrit is Pandava Kula. Pandava Kula means Pandava dynasty. Kula is dynasty. Adi Pala. Pala is king. Adi means first. Abda means year. So the first year of the first king of the Pandava dynasty. That is Yudhisthira. From Yudhisthira, when he won Kurukshetra war, from that date, 4151 years after that, this inscription is issued. So based on this, we can find that the Mahabharata war would have happened only in 3161 to 3111 BC. That is the range, because 50 years is the ruling range of Govinda Kesava Deva. So we are, if we apply that, that is the range. We cannot fix Mahabharata date as before that or after this based on this inscription. This proves that Kaliyuga began in 310 BC. And coming to the next era, that is Jayabhyudaya Yudhisthira Shaka or Kaliyuga. Jayabhyudaya Yudhisthira Shaka, there are inscriptions. Janame Jaya, that is Parikshit's son's inscription, copper plate inscriptions are there. It is in Karnataka and also in Haryana. 2 copper plates are there. But what the Western Orientalists, as our Aditya ji told, that they call everything myth. Whatever thing that proves the long antiquity of India, they will call as a myth, as a forged one. That is the thing happened to these Janame Jaya's inscriptions. They are available, but they are telling that something, they tell reason and they discard it as a forged thing. So that is Yudhishthira Sagapta, the Jayabhyudaya Yudhishthira. There are 2 inscriptions are there. For Kaliyuga, there is traditional evidence. See, in every family in India, they resisted this mantra on auspicious days. In even some families, they recite in even every day. On the important function of the village or city, they will recite. They will say this mantra. That is, in that mantra, from the day of Brahma, Svedavaraga Kalpe, Vaivaswada Manmandre, Ashtavimsadi Tame, Kaliyuge Pradame Bhage. That how many years elapsed in the Kaliyuga, they will mention. It will give time and space. This give time. Kaliyuge Pradame Bhage, how many years? After that, space it mentions. Jambudvive, Bharata Varshe, Bharadakande, Meroho, Dakshina Parsve, Sri Ramachitra. Tamil Nadu is known as Sri Ramachitra. So it will give time and space. So in India, even the very remotest antiquity time itself, our ancestors knew time and space concept. That is a traditional evidence. And I will going to deal about the epigraphic evidence. And this is literature evidence. What are all the literature evidence for Kaliyuga? Vishnu Purana, Brahmanda Purana, Vayu Purana, Matsya Purana, Brahma Purana, and Srimad Bhagavatam. These are all the sloka number and adhyaya number. We can, if you have that book, you can verify. All these 6 Purana mentions that the Kaliyuga began when Sri Krishna left the world. In the same way, Kaliyuga Raja Vriddhanta also told like this. So it is a strong proof. More than 6 texts mentioned in the same way. There is uniformity in that. So we have to give much importance to that. Then what about the inscriptional or epigraphic evidence that I have dealt more than 1 hour in the first lecture with Sattology. Anybody want, they can refer, but I will deal only briefly. This is the Aihole inscription in Karnataka and Mekudi village issued by Pulikeshi II of Chalukya, who ruled from Badami of Karnataka. What it mentions after Mahabharata war, in 3735th year of Kaliyuga and 556th year of Saka era, this inscription is inscribed. So we know that 556 Saka is 634 Common Era, because Salivagana Saka began in 78 Common Era. So this was Kaliyuga began in 3101 BC. And this is Gramam inscription in Tamil Nadu. This is given the Kaliyuga in number of days. That is 14 lakhs 77,037 Kali days. If we divide the average number of days per year, it exactly gives 4043.83. That is 4044 year. It also mentions this year also, 4044. That means in even more than 1000 years itself, in India, the people knew what is the average days per year. That much time calculation, mathematical calculation was there. Then coming to this Anamala inscription, this is the southernmost part of Tamil Nadu, that is Madurai, the southernmost king of Bharat, India. He issued an inscription in Kali Yuga date. So that also proves 3871. All these inscriptions clearly prove that Kali Yuga began in 3101 BC. Then coming to Nidanpur copper plate inscription, again from Assam. This is issued by Bhaskara Varma, the king of Kamarupa or Assam, Pragjyotisha. He also issued Dupi copper plate and also Nalanda clay seal. Nalanda is a great university at Bihar. This Dupi and Nidanpur are in Assam. So in this copper plates, he gives the genealogy of his ancestors. So he mentions clearly that he is a descendant of Bhagadatta, who was come in the clan of that Naraka, who was killed by Sri Krishna and Satyabhama. So Bhagadatta and then Pushyadatta and Vajradatta, after that 3000 years elapsed. After that 16 kings. So from Mahabharata period to Bhaskara Varma, there are a gap of 3000 years plus the ruling period of 16 kings. So this proves that Kali Yuga began in 3101 BC, because Bhaskara Varma is a contemporary to Harsasiladitya as per the Chinese traveler Yuan Shuang's writing, and also the Bhanabhatta's writing in Harsa Sarita, a Sanskrit literature that was written by his minister during 650 Common Era, that is 1350 years. Based on this Bhaskara Varma is contemporary to Harsasiladitya. We know the period of Harsasiladitya because he is a contemporary to Pulikeshi II of Aighola inscription. I have sold already Aighola inscription. From that, his regnal period we know around 600 to 650. So based on that, there is a gap of 3700 years from the date of Mahabharata war to Bhaskara Varma. That is exactly given by 3000 years plus the regnal period of 16 kings. So it definitely proves Mahabharata war happened at 3100, around that period only. So this Kali Yuga epoch, this 400, I have found out 436 inscriptions. Now I have found out more than another 30. It was issued in all languages in all parts of India, even in foreign land from Thailand, and also by all dynasties. And it mentions the various kings issued that inscriptions, and also it mentioned along with Kali Yuga other important Salivagana, Kollam, Vikrama Samvat, and other eras. So through this, it corroborately proves that Kali Yuga began in 310 BC. Then coming to the next era, Saptarishi era or Laukikapta era. Saptarishi is a 7 stars. Sapta means in Sanskrit 7. It is named after the famous auspicious 7 rishis. So they are known as Saptarishi Mandala, Saptarishi constellation. In modern astronomy, it is known as Great Bear constellation. So, what our ancestors mentioned that this Saptarishi Mandala will encircle through 360-degree, staying 100 years in each nakshatra. This 360 is divided into 27 nakshatra. So, in 2700 years, it will complete one revolution. That is the calculation. But there was no literature reference at present about at which year this Saptarishi era began. That we don't know. Maybe at the beginning of 28th Mahayuga. This Saptarishi era is mentioned in many astronomical texts like Viruddhagarga and Varahimigra, and also in Kaliyuga Rajavriddhanta. Viruddhagarga mentioned this great bear constellation where at Magha Nakshatra in Dwapara Kaliyuga junction. On explaining this sloka, Varahimigra in his Brigat Samhita mentioned that in this Adhyaya number, sloka number, you can verify that this Magha Nakshatra was, this great bear was at Magha Nakshatra when Yudhisthira was the king. So this was Yudhisthira lived at Dwapara Kaliyuga junction, and it is much useful in deriving the date of Mahabharata. And this Kaliyuga Rajavriddhanta is an important ancient Sanskrit text. Aditya ji asked me whether there is any literature reference. That's why I am showing this all literature reference. Describe the chronology of Magadha kingdom. Magadha kingdom is the great kingdom. Their capital is Rajakirga. Later, during Gupta period, become Padaliputram, that is present day Patna. That is, they are ruling around Magadha. Sometimes most of the parts of India they rule. So that Magadha kingdom, from Mahabharata war up to Gupta period, the chronology of this kingdom, historical chronology, that is which king in which dynasty ruled how many years, and total ruling period of this dynasty, everything is given by Kaliyuga Rajavriddhanta. Even in other Purana also, Vayu Purana, Matsya Purana and Brahmanda Purana also gave the excellent details. It details the revolution of Saptarishi Mandala. It clearly mentioned that it stayed in Magha 75 years before beginning of Kaliyuga and 25 years after the beginning of Kaliyuga. Already we have seen that Yudhisthira went to heaven 25 years after the beginning of Kaliyuga. So Yudhisthira time at which in which year he went to heaven, that is the beginning of the next cycle of Saptarishi era or the next cycle of Laugika era. And this Saptarishi era went to Aslesha when Yudhisthira went to heaven after 25 years of Vanavasa, at which the Laugika era also began. At the time of Mahabhatmananda, this Kaliyuga Rajavriddhanta clearly says that Saptarishi will be at Sravana Nakshatra. Sravana Nakshatra, if you count retrograde, that will be the 15th Nakshatra. So there will be, I already told, the Saptarishi will stay in each Nakshatra for 100 years. So from Parikshita to Mahabhatmananda, there is definite gap of 1500 years. That is what the many of the Purana texts mentioned initially, but due to later on copying, some number has been changed. That I have dealt already in the previous lecture. So this Kaliyuga Rajavriddhanta clearly mentioned there is a 1500 years gap between Mahabhatmananda to Parikshita. Then at 24th Nakshatra and 27th Nakshatra, this Andhra Sadhavahana dynasty will be over and Gupta period will come. So Gupta period will come. I will detail in Gupta when I detail about Gupta era. So on 27th, that is 2700 to 2800 years from Mahabharata, Gupta period starts. So this is the thing, Saptarishi era, that was mentioned by Kaliyuga Rajavriddhanta. When Saptarishi reaches Punaroshu, that is after 300 years, Gupta empire will start downfall. And when it reaches Purva Bhadrapada, that is 400 to 500 years, the Magadha kingdom will be in the hands of Pala kings of Bengal. So clearly mentioned, Kaliyuga Rajavriddhanta, the chronology of India that actually derived from the revolution of the Saptarishi Mandala. So it further mentions that when Sri Krishna left the world, Kaliyuga had begun. So this Saptarishi era and Laugika era, is there is any inscriptional evidence for that? Yes, there is an inscription, that too at Jammu Kashmir, that is Bhuvaneshwari. That is a holy place in Jammu and Kashmir, in Srinagar Taluk and Srinagar district, in the village Kunmo. There is a Sanskrit inscription written in Sarada Lipi. It mentions Kali era 4530 and Laukika year 4. That is, Laukika year 4 is in the 46th cycle. So that clearly shows that Kaliyuga began in 3101 BC. It also mentioned the ruler of that Kashmir during that period. That is King Jian ul Abidin, whose regnal period is 1418 to 1070. So that also clearly shows that Kaliyuga began in 3101 BC and Laukika era started in 3076 BC. So there is an inscriptional evidence and also literature evidence for this two era. And Laukika era, I have already shown it began in 3076 BCE and it is mainly followed in Kashmir. So the Kalhana's Raja Tarangani, an important text that is a historical chronicle on Kashmir kings since Mahabharata war more than 4,000 years. Each ruler, how many years he has ruled, that and all given by Kalhana. So that is an important thing. There is a literature evidence, another literature evidence by Kalhana's Raja Tarangani also. Then coming to Malawa Ganasaka. It is started around 725 before Common Era. That means we can say that is more than 2727 years, 25 years. What is the history of that Malawa kingdom? Around 850 before Common Era, that is more than 2850 years, a Brahmin named by Dunji, he, with the help of the local people, he united the Malawa territory, that is Ujjaini, Avanti, and Mandasar, other places around Malwa, that is Ujjaini in Madhya Pradesh of India, and he became a king. In the year around 725 before Common Era, this Malwa kingdom became independent from the rule of Andhra Sadavahana dynasty. So those people celebrated that independence and they started on Saka, one era, that is Malavagana Saka. There is an inscription evidence for that. There are more than 20 inscriptions that mentions the date in Malavagana Saka. I can show only one. That is inscription issued by in Chandrapura. There is a Mahadeva Shiva temple and it mentions the date as Malavanam Gana Sada Sadustaye. That means Sada means 100, Sadu means 400, Navadi. So 93. So 493 Malavagana. We have seen that it started around 725. So the date may be 232 BCE. But what is the importance is, it mentions the king, the local ruler as Bandhuvarman, who is son of Viswavarma. And who is this Bandhuvarman? The local ruler, that is, he is the governor of Kumaragupta Gupta dynasty. So from this inscription, like many 20 inscriptions, we can prove that Gupta rule was around 300 BCE and not around 300 AD. That is an important additional gain what we get from Malavagana Saka. It is followed around Malwa region. This is the inscription. What is this inscription that dated in Malavagana 493. So that is the inscription. I thank Indian Antiquary. It is given in volume 15. Anybody can go and refer. In the 196 page onwards, it is there. Then coming to Saka Kala. This I want to detail a lot. How a foreign ruler, his era is used in India. That is the question many people ask. Cyrus II is a famous Persian king. Before him, the Persian area was ruled by Medes. They are the sub-ruler of Medes kingdom. He captured Ecbatania and used Median dynasty in 550 BCE. This is described in Persian history. Persian history clearly mentioned that during the year 550 or 51 BCE, the Cyrus II made Persia as an independent kingdom. So on that year, he started the Saka era. So what is the meaning of this Saka? Why they called Saka means that we have to go to Ramayana to know what is the meaning of Saka. In Ramayana of Valmiki, in the 54 and 55th Sarga of Balakanda, it narrated an incident. That is Kausika Raja, who later became Vishwamitra. He attacked Kamadhenu. Kamadhenu is in the Vashishta's ashrama. Because of Kamadhenu, Vashishta can feed even thousands and thousands of armies, though he is in the forest without any grains, anything, but he can feed. So Vishwamitra want to take away that Kamadhenu, but Kamadhenu protected her by creating Kshatriyas, that is warriors, who can fight from her. That one of the warrior that Kshatriya clan came out from Kamadhenu is Saka people. Saka means Sak means power. So they are known as Saka people. With power, they attacked Vishwamitra. So Vishwamitra was defeated, and he know what is the power of this Atma Sakti. After that, he became a saint or Rishi. Brahma Rishi also he attacked. So that Saka people are born out of Kamadhenu, and they are the Kshatriya fighting clan of India. Because they didn't follow Veda, they become outcasted and they were driven away from India, and they settled in many places. And one of the people from Saka is Parasaka. Para is highest. So the first order Saka people is Parasaka, and they settled in a place called Parasaka. That become Parasika, and that become Persian. Now it become Iran. So that is the history. So this Cyrus II, though he is a Persian, he has an Indian origin. That is one thing. And second thing is from 425 to 100 BCE, this Malawa area and also Gujarat, it were ruled by Scythians or Satraps. That is nothing but the Saga people. Nagapana is one of the important king who ruled Gujarat and the adjacent area. So because of their rule during that period, our people also followed this Saka Kala. It is usually mentioned as Saka Kala or Saka Bhupa Kala, Saka Nirupa Kala. Nirupa Bhupa means king. The Saka king's era. That is the history of this Saka Kala. What are all the literary evidence? Varagimera clearly mentioned using this Saka Kala as epoch in his Panja Siddhantika as Saptasvi Veda Sankyam Saka Kalam Apasya Chaitra Sukladav. Saptasvi Veda means 427. That is Buddha Sankhya. And in 427 of Saka Kala, he wrote this Panchasiddhantika. So that is the epoch of Panchasiddhantika. May it go written on that day, or he calculated 427 Saka Kala as the nearby date as the epoch. So this means Varagimikara used this Saka Kala. What he mentioned about the beginning year of this Saka Kala, whether it matches with the Persian record, that is 550 before Common Era, that is the beginning of Saka Era, that we have to see another sloka. Varagimira in his Brigat Samkita, he mentioned Asan Magasu Munayaka, Sasati Prithvim Yudhisthire Nirupatau, Shad Divika Pancha Diviyutaka Saka Kalastasya Rajnatsa. Shad Divika Pancha Diviyutaka means 2526 years, from which Yudhisthira Nirupatau, that is Yudhisthira period. From Yudhisthira period, 2526 years, after the Yudhisthira and the stationing of 7 rishis in Magha, that is also Asan, Magasu, Munayaka. Munayaka means Muni, that is Saptarishi. Magasuna, Magha Nakshatra, Asan is staying. From that, we know that 7 rishis stayed in Magha constellation up to 3076 only. After that, it went to Aslesa. So, from 3076, 2025, 2526 years, we have to minus. Then it comes 550 BCE, exactly at which the Cyrus II ended Persian vassalage. So it correctly coincides. So that Sakakala is Cyrus II era. There are literary evidence for that. Then coming to Sri Garsha era. Many people don't know this era, even in India. Kalhana's Raja Tarangani, I have narrated. That is a historical chronicle of Kashmir kingdom. In the second Taranga, 5 and 6th sloka, it mentions that Sri Garsha was the ruler of Ujjain, whose title name was Vikramaditya. See, this Sri Garsha has the title name Vikramaditya and birth name is Sri Garsha. The Vikramaditya of 57 BCE, he has birth name as Vikramaditya and title name is Sri Garsha. So that is why we can confuse with both. So this Vikramaditya title name, that is Sri Garsha, he was the grandson of King of Ujjain. And he was the brother of Bhartrhari, Patti and Vararusi. He started his era in 457 BCE. The Alburani, Alburani is India. That was English translated. Tahik Mahal Hind, that is the name Alburani gave. In that he mentioned this Sri Harsha era, that it began 400 years before Vikrama Sambat. We know that Vikrama Sambat began in 57 BCE. So it started in 457 BCE. So that is an important thing. What about this Kalhana's Raja Tarangani mentioned about this Vikramaditya? The first Taranga, 57 to 82 sloka mentioned, that is an important history of India. But nobody teaches Kalhana's Raja Tarangani in any of the schools or colleges and universities in India. Gonanda I and his son Damodara I and Damodara's wife Yasovati and her son Gonanda II were contemporary to Sri Krishna and Pandava. See, Gonanda I fought with Sri Krishna and was killed. After that, Damodara, his son, became the king. He also fought with Krishna and Pandava. So he was also murdered. At the time, Yasovati was pregnant. So Sri Krishna told Kashmir is a land of Shiva and Parvati. So we should make Yasovati as the queen. We should not annex that kingdom with any other thing. So Yasovati was made as a king of Kashmir by Sri Krishna himself. This was narrated in Kalhana's Raja Tarangani. This sloka is there. And after that, he gave birth to Gonanda II. But this Gonanda II didn't participate in Kurukshetra war because he is an infant, Shishu. So nobody invited him to join with either Pandava or Kaurava. Nobody invited. So that also mentioned in Kalhana's Raja Tarangani. After 49 kings, that is Gonanda II is an infant during Mahabharata war, and 49 kings from Gonanda II is the king Gonanda III. He ruled Kashmir. From Gonanda II to Pratapabaditya, there were 22 kings. And Kalagana mentioned that he wrote this text in 1070 Sakara, that is 1148 Common Era. He also mentioned that from Gonanda III to Kalhana, there elapsed 2330 years. So the Gonanda III period is around 1182 BC. Then from Gonanda II to Gonanda III, there are 22 kings. So 22 kings means how many years? Since this Pratapabaditya, from Gonanda to Pratapabaditya, there are 22 kings. Pratapabaditya, who was that? He is a relative to Sri Krishna, Pratapabaditya, with the title name Vikramaditya, we have already seen. He who started Sri Garsha for 457 BC. So Sri Garsha and Pratapabaditya were contemporary, and Gonanda III to this king, there are how many years? 725 years for 21 kings. So it is average per king is 34 years. So it is acceptable. In that way also, Kalhana's Raja Tarangani clearly proves that Mahabharata war happened around 3100 only. because from Gonanda 2 to Gonanda 3, 22 kings, that also fit with these things. 10 kings are there. So, date of Adi Sankara. How we can calculate Sri Krishna with Adi Sankara? Adi Sankara date is given in Prachina Sankara Vijaya in Buddha Sankhya, that is 2593 Kali. Tisya means Kaliyuga, Prayatna Anala Sevadi Bhana, that means 2593. Netra means 2. So we have to reverse this. Netra is 2, Bhana is 5, Sevadi is 9, and Anala is 3, 2593. Shiva Guru is the father of Sankara. So Sankara born in to Shiva Guru in the year 2593 of Kaliyuga. And the Punya Shloka Manjari mentioned that Sarasarabde in this code word Kadapayadi Sankhya, it mentioned that Adi Sankara attained Mukti in 2625 years. So then it shows that Adi Sankara period is around 509 to 476 BCE. How it is connected with Sri Garsha? To know this connection, we have to know the history that happened during that period. So we have to read Patanjali Sarita, that is the history of Patanjali Rishi, and also Sankara Vijaya, that is history of Adi Sankara. Patanjali Charita is written in that Patanjali is mentioned as the avatar of Adishesha. And Patanjali wrote 3 texts. One is Patanjali Sutra, that is Yoga Sutra, that we know. Second text is Patanjali's Mahabhashyam, that is the commentary on Panini's Astadhyaya. It's a Sanskrit Vyakarana grammar book. Third book is Saraga Samkhya, that is a medicine text. On those days it was called. Saraka is another name for Patanjali. So Saraka wrote a text for to correct mind and yoga, and to correct speech, and also to correct body. All 3 things he wrote 3 books. And it is famous in all the 3 books are famous. Because one in Sanskrit there will be 3 texts. One is Sutra, another one is Vakya, and another Vyakaranam, and another is Vartika. Sutra is the main text. And then this commentary is another thing, Bhashya. And commentary to this commentary is Vartika. Patanjali Yoga Sutra is the main text. This is a Sutra text. That is also famous. And also this Bhashya. Panini's Astadhyaya is the Sutra text, but Mahabhashya is the famous thing. And Saraga Samkhya is the Vartika. That is commentary to the commentary of the main text. That is also famous. So whatever he wrote, that become famous. So how Patanjali is connected here? Patanjali, he came to Sidambaram in Tamil Nadu to worship Lord Nataraja, his dance. At that time, he wanted to taught this Mahabhashya to many Sishya. One of the Sishya is from Bengal. He is known as Gaudapada. Gauda is the name for Bengal. Usually, Bharat, India is divided as Pancha Gauda, Pancha Dravida. Pancha Gauda is northern of India, Pancha Dravida is southern of India. So that's Gauda and Dravida are only geographical name and not racial name. That we should know. So Gaudapada is one of the Sishya who was taught by Patanjali about Mahabhashya. So he went to found out another good disciple to taught Mahabhashya. So he waited at the Narmada river. At that time, one person, Chandra Sharma or Chandragupta Sharma, he came from Kashmir to know Sanskrit grammar from Patanjali. And he explained that Patanjali is not there, so I can only treat, but I will give a test for you. One important test. I will ask some Sanskrit grammar question. That is, in Sanskrit, there is a Nishtala suffix. So for Bhuj is to eating. If we add Nishta to make it as a past passive participle, it should become Bhuktam, like that. So Ikta we got to add. So he asked, what is the Nishtaga suffix added form of this pach means to cook. So he told, usually normally people told Bhuj become Bhuktam, so Pach become Bhaktam. So it is not correct. So it is Pakvam in Sanskrit. So he answered correctly. So he taught Mahabhashya fully to him. But since it is a forest place, there is nothing to write. So he wrote it in the leaves of the trees. So after 9 days, he continuously wrote. So after that, he take it all the leaves with him, went to Ujjain. So because he has not taken any food or slept, so on finding a house, outside the house, he fainted there. And so that girl is a daughter of that owner of the girl. She actually saved this Sandra Sharma. So after getting cured of this tiredness, everything and hungry, he want to go up. But this father didn't allow. You should marry my daughter. Because Sandra Sharma want to become a brahmachari to teach Mahabhashya throughout the nation. But this quarrel went to the king, and on seeing Sandra Sharma, his tejas, king want to marry his daughter also. So he want to ask what is the clarification in the Shastra from the minister. On seeing this Sandra Sharma, his tejas, minister also want to give his daughter in marriage alliance with this. So he married, and another lady also came. So he married 4 ladies or 3 ladies. So he want to go to for sannyasa, but unfortunately he has to marry 3 or 4 girls. So from king's daughter, two sons were born. That is Bhartrihari and Vikramaditya. That is the name of Sri Harsha. Sri Harsha is born. And this from minister daughter Patti, the later minister for Vikramaditya or Sri Harsha, he born. And from another lady, this Vararushi. Vararushi is a famous person. And Bhartrihari also wrote Vairagya Satakam and Nidhi Satakam. So this Sri Harsha born out of Sandra Sharma. He was the son of Sandra Sharma, grandson of the Ujjain king. So Bhartrihari don't want to rule. He become a sannyasi. So Vikramaditya or Sri Harsha become the king, and Patti become the minister. So this Vikramaditya or Sri Harsha was the son of Sandra Sharma. Who is Sandra Sharma? He got sannyasi and he got the name Govinda Bhagavad Pada. Who is that Govinda Bhagavad Pada? He is the guru of Adi Sankara. Already we have seen Adi Sankara date around 500 BCE. So this Govinda Bhagavad Pada or Sandra Sharma, the father of Vikramaditya or Sri Harsha, his period will be also 500 BCE. In that, it proves that the Sri Harsha era started in 457 BCE. So we have to read all the important literature. All are in Sanskrit, and we should know Sanskrit, as Aditya ji in the last meeting itself pointed out. And from that, we can understand the correct history of India. India's history is there. Only thing lacking is we have to read. It is there distributed in every text of this land. So if we go through and read all the texts, all the inscriptions properly and correctly, and do much hard work, we can definitely write history of India properly and exactly. So in this session, first part of this lecture, because in the next lecture because it will take another 45 minutes. So I conclude with this point, that is in this I narrated about the Yudhisthira era, Kaliyuga, and Jayabhyudaya Yudhishthira Saka and Saptarishi era, Laukika and Malawa Ganasaka and Sakakala and Sri Harsha era are detailed. In the next concluding second part, I will detail about the Gupta era and Vikrama Sambat and Salivagana Saka, Ganga era, Kollam, Chalukya Vikrama Sambat and Kochi date. Thank you for listening. Though at times I cannot pronounce the name of the king, Pradapa Aditya, properly. Please pardon me. So other than that, I have narrated properly, I think. So thank you very much for the cooperation and encouragement. I thank you, Aditya ji and Sattology team. And also, I say humbly my pranams to all the professors and scholars of various universities and also the students of this university. Thank you very much. If there is anything you want to ask, I can ready to answer.
There's only one question. Very convincing presentation and very, like as per your detailed research that you have done and collected all this information from various sources. You have done it. Now, one thing I must point out to the viewers is that this information is publicly available, but Dr. Raja has collated it together and pieced it in one way. But the most of the academic institutions don't teach this. This is the biggest problem. And see, the Western universities will teach the same information if the Indian university teach the same information. Their very logic is very simple, and it's a vicious cycle. The Western universities won't like Indian universities to teach it because it affects their Abrahamic concepts and history. And the Indian universities won't teach it also because they get money from the Western universities. Now, it is the duty of the Indian education authorities to teach the right history to their students, because otherwise the identity of the Indian students is in question. And so the responsibility again comes back to the Indians, not to the Westerners. The Westerners are going to say, you change it, but most of the Western people are not going to change it, because the universities in the Western world, they also work against their own people, pretty much. They don't teach them the real history also. Like, I do not see anywhere in the American curriculum being taught how the Indian native Indians were massacred to capture this land. No version of that. Neither in the southern South America it is being taught, nor even in Europe. The Romanis are the traditional Hindus. 2016, Sushma Swaraj declared them as descendants from India. Romanis in the Europe. No discrimination against them is being taught. And the even today, the reservations in the America, they are completely overpowered by the Abrahamic faith institutions. And so they cannot teach their own culture. There is no recognition of their own languages. That is not there in the US. So if that is happening in the Western world, why will the Western academic institutions will try to correct the history in the Indian textbooks? It is the responsibility of the Indians to correct their own history textbooks. So it's a blame game. They say first you correct it, then we'll correct it, but they won't let you correct it. And then the Indians say, and the Indians say, oh, we are, the one of the past education ministers of India proudly said we have not changed anything. That was the biggest, funniest statement I ever heard. That's a joke of the century. And now so it is a responsibility of the Indians to teach the right history to their own people. Just like smaller countries from India, Thailand have done it, Vietnam has done it, Burma has done it, Myanmar has done it. Many other countries, Southeast Asia have done it. Even Indonesia. Indonesians say their culture comes from Ayodhya. Malaysia says it, and that's honesty in their own textbooks. So, but why not India? That's the biggest mystery. I'll stop it there, and we'll conclude in the part 2. But thank you so much for your presentation. Very detailed. Namaste.